There was a time when every Friday evening Interstate 15 looked like a parade of headlights stretching endlessly through the Mojave Desert. Cars packed with Californians, music blasting, windows down, energy high racing toward the city of neon dreams. Las Vegas lived and breathed thanks to those weekend warriors from Los Angeles, San Diego, and Orange County. But lately something feels off. That same highway that once symbolized escape now looks eerily empty. Gas stations that used to overflow with laughter and Red Bulls are quiet. The road signs still say, "Welcome to fabulous Las Vegas," but fewer and fewer Californians are answering the call. This isn't just a slow weekend, it's a symptom of something deeper. For decades, California has been the lifeblood of Las Vegas tourism. The numbers were staggering. Nearly 4 out of every 10 visitors once came from the Golden State. They filled the hotels, packed the casinos, bought show tickets, and kept the Strip alive during every holiday rush. But now, those familiar license plates are vanishing. It's as if a once loyal friend simply stopped showing up. No fight, no farewell, just silence. The change didn't happen overnight, but in the past few years, the decline has become impossible to ignore. Behind the glitz and glamour, Vegas has quietly entered a new phase, one where it can no longer take California's love for granted. Rising costs, scorching summers, and shifting lifestyles are all reshaping how people travel, and Vegas, once the ultimate quick getaway, might be losing its magic. So tonight, we're peeling back the story of this fading relationship from the golden years when California built Vegas's empire to the slow estrangement that now threatens its future. Because if the people who live just 4 hours away have stopped coming, then maybe Las Vegas's biggest problem isn't who's visiting, but who's no longer coming back. Stay until the end, because what's happening between California and Las Vegas might reveal the city's most urgent warning yet. There was a time when Las Vegas didn't just depend on California, it belonged to it. From the 1,990 seconds through the early 2010 seconds, weekends on the Strip felt like an extension of Los Angeles nightlife. You could walk through the Bellagio, the MGM Grand, or Caesar's Palace and hear the same voices, the same slang, the same swagger that filled the clubs of Hollywood. Vegas wasn't a distant destination, it was California's playground in the desert. Back then, statistics told a love story written in neon. Nearly 40% of all visitors came from the Golden State. That meant more than 10 million Californians a year flooding into Las Vegas, filling rooms, spinning roulette wheels, and tipping bartenders like they owned the town. They came for birthdays, bachelor parties, boxing fights, and impulsive weekend escapes. Every Friday night, highways looked like rivers of chrome flowing through the Mojave. A 4-hour drive and a tank of gas were all it took to cross into another reality, one where rules didn't apply and money felt like it could buy freedom. In the early 2000s, it was almost a ritual. Young couples left San Diego after work, driving through the desert with the top down. Families from Orange County packed their SUVs for long weekends at Circus Circus or Mandalay Bay. Business groups from Silicon Valley threw team-building parties that blurred the line between networking and chaos. California wasn't just a visitor, it was Vegas's identity. The city's entire rhythm pulsed around that migration. Hotels timed their promotions around Los Angeles holidays, restaurants stocked extra ingredients for the incoming surge, and casinos rolled out VIP perks tailored specifically for Californians. Billboards on Interstate 15 said it best, "Your weekend starts here." The economic impact was enormous. According to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, Californians accounted for billions in annual spending from casino floors to show tickets, from luxury suites to gas stations along the way. They didn't just spend, they kept thousands of jobs alive. More importantly, they gave Las Vegas its energy. That sense of spontaneity, that electric chaos that made the city famous, it all came from California's restless spirit. But empires built on routine can crumble quietly. Because when those same travelers started finding other ways to have fun, when the 4-hour drive stopped feeling worth it, Las Vegas began to lose more than just money. It started to lose its soul. The city didn't notice at first. After all, the lights still glittered, the casinos still buzzed. But beneath the shine, a slow shift had begun, one that would soon expose how fragile this golden era really was. When the pandemic hit in 2020, Las Vegas went dark, literally. The Strip, once the brightest stretch of lights on Earth, turned into a ghost boulevard. Casinos shut their doors, fountains stopped dancing, and hotel lobbies echoed with silence. But when the lights finally flickered back on months later, something else had changed, not in Vegas, but in California. The world's habits had shifted. Those spontaneous weekend road trips that used to define the California-Vegas bond were no longer part of people's lives. After months of isolation, Californians had discovered new ways to unwind closer to home, cheaper and quieter. Instead of the Strip, they were exploring the hills of Big Bear, the vineyards of Napa, and the deserts of Joshua Tree. For decades, Vegas sold itself as the ultimate escape. But now, after the lockdowns, escape meant something different. It wasn't flashing lights and crowded casino floors anymore. It was peace, open skies, and distance from noise. The same energy that once drove people to gamble was replaced by a craving for simplicity. Work from home changed everything too. Without the grind of commuting, Fridays no longer carried that sense of urgency to flee the city for the weekend. People could relax in their own homes or take small local getaways that didn't involve a 5-hour drive through the desert. And as inflation started to bite, the once affordable Vegas weekend suddenly looked like a luxury few could justify. Statistics tell the story clearly. By 2024, the number of visitors from California had dropped by nearly 30% compared to 2019. For the first time in decades, the Strip's biggest customer base was fading, not because they couldn't come, but because they no longer wanted to. Even entertainment preferences evolved. Younger Californians, Gen Z and millennials, are less drawn to traditional gambling. They'd rather spend money on experiences, food, or travel abroad. Vegas's image as a gambling city started to feel outdated, a relic of their parents' generation. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles and San Diego, nightlife scenes grew stronger than ever. The luxury experiences that once defined Vegas rooftop pools, Michelin-starred dining, private lounges could now be found at home. The question many Californians began to ask was simple. Why go all the way to Vegas for something I can already get here? This wasn't a rebellion. It was quiet evolution, a cultural drift. Vegas kept trying to bring them back with influencer campaigns, EDM festivals, and discounted hotel deals, but the spark was gone. What used to be a weekend ritual became a nostalgic memory. And as California moved on, Las Vegas faced a chilling realization. The pandemic hadn't just paused tourism, it had rewritten the psychology of its most loyal visitors. The bond was broken, and no billboard could fix it. For generations, the drive from California to Las Vegas was a rite of passage. You filled the tank, loaded your playlist, grabbed snacks for the road, and by sunset, the skyline of the Strip shimmered ahead, a promise of freedom. But today, that same 4-hour journey feels more like a financial headache than a fun getaway. Let's start with gas. In California, it's the most expensive in America, often hovering around $6 per gallon. That means a round trip to Las Vegas can cost over $150 just in fuel for an average SUV. Add in rising tolls, wear and tear, and hours stuck in desert traffic, and suddenly that quick weekend escape starts to feel like an investment. And when you finally arrive in Vegas, the spending doesn't stop, it explodes. Hotel prices that once hovered around $7,090 a night have doubled or even tripled since 2019. Then come the hidden costs, resort fees that add $30 to $50 per night, parking fees that used to be free but now run another $2,025 a day, and taxes on almost everything. Vegas used to sell itself as the affordable alternative to California's luxury coastlines. Now, it's not much cheaper than a weekend in Santa Monica or Palm Springs. Locals joke that Las Vegas has turned into Los Angeles with slot machines but hotter and more expensive. For Californians already struggling with one of the highest costs of living in the U.S., that matters. A weekend that once cost a few $100s can now easily top $1,000 after meals, shows, and nightlife. And unlike Disneyland or Napa, Vegas doesn't carry the same emotional nostalgia anymore, it's just another expense. The irony runs deep. Vegas built its brand on being cheap fun. You could drink for free while gambling, eat at buffets that felt endless, and stay in hotels that looked luxurious but didn't drain your wallet. It was about indulgence without guilt. But now, visitors find themselves nickel and dimed at every corner. A bottle of water that costs $2 at home goes for $8 on the Strip. A basic breakfast can hit $50 for 2 people. Even street parking off Strip, once a safe backup, is being replaced by paid-only zones. When you stack all that against California's local alternatives, beaches, wine regions, resorts, the question becomes simple: why drive 4 hours to pay more for less? Interviews with frequent travelers echo the same frustration. A Los Angeles resident named Carla summed it up bluntly: "I used to go every other month. Now, I can't justify spending $1,000 just to be uncomfortable." Vegas stopped being fun when it started feeling like a scam. This shift in perception from value to ripoff is perhaps the most dangerous change of all. Once tourists lose the belief that a city gives them more than it takes, they stop coming. And that's exactly what's happening with California. The problem isn't that they can't afford Vegas, it's that Vegas no longer feels worth it. The Strip can keep its lights on, but if the people who once filled those rooms feel priced out or unwelcome, the damage will last far longer than a recession. Because when Sin City starts costing too much to sin, people simply stop showing up. Vegas used to feel wild. It was the one place where you could throw the rules out the window, where the night had no end, the limits were imaginary, and the city itself whispered, "Whatever happens here stays here." But somewhere along the way, that slogan stopped being true. Today's Las Vegas feels less like a city of freedom and more like a giant corporate machine. Every corner is monetized, every experience is branded, and spontaneity, the heartbeat that once defined the Strip, is slowly disappearing under layers of business models and spreadsheets. You can feel it the moment you arrive. The themed hotels that once sparked imagination, the Pyramid of Luxor, the Venetian canals, the New York skyline now look more like Instagram props than places of wonder. Buffets are gone or overpriced. Casino floors are filled with algorithm-driven slot machines that don't even use coins anymore. The sound of quarters dropping, that raw, tangible thrill, has been replaced by silent credit card taps and reward points. The magic of old Vegas wasn't about luxury, it was about escape. It was messy, human, unpredictable. You could stumble into a 2 a.m. wedding at a tiny chapel, meet strangers from halfway across the world, or watch a magician perform in a smoky lounge for 20 people. Now, you book everything online, sign digital waivers, and spend more time in lines than at tables. Vegas has become efficient but sterile. Even the entertainment landscape has changed. Where Sinatra, Elvis, and Celine Dion once defined eras, today's Strip is dominated by short-term residencies and influencer-driven pop-ups. Corporate events and conventions fill the same halls where wild gamblers used to roam. The soul of the city, that reckless joy, has been replaced by a carefully managed experience. And Californians, more than anyone, can sense it. They come from a culture that invented entertainment. They know when something feels authentic and when it's just a sales pitch. For them, Vegas no longer feels like a guilty pleasure. It feels like another overproduced show. Vegas used to be our playground, says Jason, a Los Angeles creative director. Now it feels like we're walking through an ad campaign. It's not that people don't want luxury, it's that they miss realness. They crave adventure, emotion, and connection, things you can't buy with a package deal or a digital coupon. The corporate takeover might have made Vegas richer in the short term, but it's cost the city its essence. In chasing perfection, Vegas forgot that its greatest appeal was imperfection, the chaos, the chance, the rush of not knowing what comes next. And when that unpredictability fades, so does the desire to return. Because no matter how bright the lights are, if everything feels scripted, the magic is gone. There's a brutal irony to the journey from California to Las Vegas. The closer you get to paradise, the more punishing the road becomes. For decades, the 5-hour drive through the Mojave Desert was part of the adventure, blasting music, swapping stories, watching the skyline appear like a mirage. But in recent years, that same road has turned into a symbol of frustration. Ask anyone who's made the trip lately and you'll hear the same complaints: traffic, heat, exhaustion. The once liberating drive down Interstate 15 has become a slow crawl, especially on Sunday afternoons when thousands of Californians try to head home at the same time. What used to take 5 hours can now stretch to 8 or 9 under a merciless sun that turns the asphalt into a mirror of fire, and that sun is only getting hotter. Las Vegas has always been a desert city, but the past few years have taken the word hot to new extremes. Summer highs now regularly exceed 115 degrees Fahrenheit, 46 degrees Celsius. Asphalt melts, car tires burst, and heat stroke warnings fill the radio. For travelers from California, the trip is no longer about escaping, it's about enduring. The desert, once an open invitation, now feels like a barrier. In 2023, record-breaking temperatures forced emergency crews to station water trucks along I-15 for stranded vehicles. A few years ago, these stories would have sounded absurd, now they're normal. Even the air-conditioned safety of a luxury SUV can't hide the fact that the journey itself has become dangerous. Then comes the reality of the city once you arrive. The heat doesn't stop when you reach the Strip. Walking from one resort to another can feel like crossing a furnace. Tourists dart between shadows, clutching cold drinks like lifelines. Outdoor pools and patios, once key attractions, now sit half empty during the day because it's simply unbearable to stay outside for long. And unlike beach towns like Malibu or San Diego, Vegas offers no relief, no breeze, no ocean, just dry, shimmering heat. For many Californians, used to the coastal climate, that's a deal breaker. Even environmental concerns are adding to the hesitation. With headlines about Lake Mead drying up and water restrictions across Nevada, the image of Las Vegas as an oasis feels increasingly fragile. Travelers are asking themselves uncomfortable questions. Is this city even sustainable anymore? The romance of the desert road, that cinematic drive from LA to the Strip, is fading under real-world problems. And when the journey itself becomes a chore, fewer people will take it. Because in the end, no amount of neon can outshine the reality of 8 hours in traffic, 115 degrees of heat, and a city that's starting to melt under its own Sunday. For decades, California wasn't just Las Vegas's favorite neighbor, it was its financial engine. The math was simple. When Californians came, Vegas thrived. When they didn't, everything slowed down. But over the past few years, the numbers have started to tell a darker story. According to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, LVCVA, visitors from California once made up nearly 40% of total arrivals, and more importantly, they spent more per trip than almost any other group. They didn't just gamble, they dined, shopped, and filled the city's high-end suites. For hotels and casinos, California wasn't a market, it was the heartbeat. Then, the pandemic came, and after that, inflation. And finally, disillusionment. Between 2019 and 2024, spending by California visitors dropped by nearly 25%, even as overall tourist numbers began to recover. That means fewer hotel bookings, emptier restaurants, and thinner margins for casinos that had built their entire business model around weekend road trips from Los Angeles. It's not just the big resorts feeling the pain. Smaller players, family-owned restaurants, off-strip motels, local tour companies depended heavily on Californians for consistent business. Those quick two-night getaways used to fill rooms that didn't need corporate conventions or massive marketing budgets. Now, many of those rooms stay dark. Even nightlife, once the crown jewel of the Vegas economy, has been hit. DJ residencies and luxury clubs rely on that California crowd, young, trendy, high-spending. Without them, the energy inside these venues feels different. Promoters talk about quiet weekends, bartenders describe smaller tips, and show producers are cutting back on staff. One insider from a major strip hotel put it bluntly, "We used to count on LA to save every weekend. Now we hold our breath and hope international travelers fill the gap." But the problem is, international tourists aren't as reliable. They come in seasonal waves, big surges during events like F1 or New Year's, then months of quiet. Californians, on the other hand, used to come every weekend. They were the rhythm that kept the city alive. Without them, the cracks are showing. Restaurants are scaling down menus, hotels are trimming staff, Even casino floor revenues are shifting, with more emphasis on high-stakes players from Asia or the Middle East to compensate for the lost middle-class tourist. But that's a dangerous strategy. It turns Vegas into a city for the elite, not for everyone. And that's not what made Vegas famous. Historically, the city's genius was accessibility. You didn't have to be rich to feel rich for a weekend. Californians knew that it's why they came in droves. But when everyday visitors stop coming, that democratic illusion begins to crumble. The economic ripple effect stretches beyond the Strip. Gas stations along I-15 report lower sales. Baker, the tiny desert town halfway between Vegas and LA, sees emptier diners and shuttered souvenir shops. Even rental car companies and airlines feel the slowdown because when one state stops traveling, the entire system trembles. Vegas may still sparkle from afar, but under the surface, its foundations are shaking. The city's economy has always been built on constant motion, cars coming in, money flowing out, and when the California flow slows to a trickle, Las Vegas begins to feel something it hasn't in a long time: stillness. Las Vegas is a city that refuses to sit still. When one market dries up, it goes hunting for another. And as Californians begin to drift away, the question haunting the Strip is simple: who replaces them? The city's marketing machine has already shifted gears. New campaigns are targeting Texas, Florida, and Arizona, betting that the booming economies of the South and Southwest can fill the void left by Los Angeles and San Diego. Billboards in Dallas and Houston now flash with messages like "Vegas is calling" and "Your next adventure starts in the desert." There's some logic to the move. Texans love entertainment, they travel often, and with no state income tax, they have disposable income. But there's a catch: they don't have the same proximity. A quick road trip from LA takes hours. From Dallas, it's a flight. And that changes the rhythm completely. Vegas was built on spontaneity, the idea that you could decide on a Friday morning and be at the blackjack table by Friday night. Air travel doesn't deliver that same impulsive spark. Then there's the push for international visitors. After the Formula One Grand Prix and the Super Bowl, Vegas has worked hard to market itself as a global luxury hub, courting travelers from Mexico, Canada, Europe, and the Middle East. These guests spend more per visit, but they also come less often. Vegas used to thrive on volume, not just prestige. That's what makes California irreplaceable. It wasn't just about money, it was about frequency and familiarity. Californians didn't need convincing. They came because Vegas felt like a second home. Without that steady stream, the city has to reinvent itself again. Some casinos are pivoting toward experience tourism, offering immersive shows, high-end dining, and even wellness retreats. Others are embracing sports. The arrival of the Raiders, Golden Knights, and the upcoming MLB Athletics marks a new era where Vegas isn't just for gamblers anymore. But even with new attractions, something is missing. The emotional bond that once tied Vegas to California can't be replicated by marketing. It was cultural, organic, born from decades of shared habits and geography. Economists warn that the loss of California tourists could create long-term instability for the local economy. When your most loyal audience stops showing up, loyalty programs and discount codes won't fix the problem, identity will. Because Vegas, at its core, has always been a mirror reflecting what people crave at any given moment. And right now, Californians crave peace, not chaos, nature, not neon. Until Vegas learns how to offer both thrill and authenticity, it may keep losing the very people who once built its empire. Las Vegas has always been a city built on reinvention, a desert mirage that somehow keeps finding ways to shine, even when the odds are stacked against it. But this time, the challenge isn't a financial crash or a pandemic, it's something deeper, the quiet departure of its oldest, most loyal fans. When California turns away, it's not just tourists leaving, it's identity, energy, and history fading from the Strip. For generations, those cars speeding across the Mojave Desert were more than travelers, they were lifelines. They gave Vegas its weekends, its rhythm, its soul. Now the road is emptier. The skyline still glows, but it glows for fewer eyes. And as the city searches for new guests from Texas, from Tokyo, from Toronto, one question remains. Can Las Vegas ever truly be Las Vegas without California? Because sometimes the most dangerous silence isn't the lack of noise, it's the absence of those who used to make it. If you've ever driven that long stretch of highway and felt the thrill of the Strip rise from the sand, you already know what's at stake. Like, share, and subscribe, and stay with us for the next episode. The Hidden Cost of Living in Vegas 2025.